So we were notified by the United States Anti-Doping Agency late this afternoon of a potential anti-doping violation of Jon Jones in a sample that was collected July 28th. So the day before UFC 214, my understanding was the sample was collected in the hours after the weigh-in. So that would put him in an in-competition period under the program. USADA, who you all probably know is the independent administrator of our program, is working very closely with the California State Athletic Commission. They retain jurisdiction over this matter as well because of the proximity to the fight. So the two of them will be working close together. And really, until the appropriate time comes, that's about everything that we have in terms of specific comments. I'm happy to answer questions about general procedures and things of that matter, but I'm not going to talk anything more specifically on Jon's case.
Can you talk about what happens? I mean, obviously he had a previous issue as well. As they're going through the administration process on this, does that factor in at all to how they reach their decisions?
Yeah, again, not speaking specifically to Jon, but just in general, when someone would have a previous violation, those things are taken into account, I'm sure. The beautiful thing about our program is that the UFC is not policing ourselves. That was the reason that we went to USADA, and the reason we did that is so that our fighters could have trust in the system. And those of you that know my background in professional sports and anti-doping, I've spoken with 150, 200 maybe professional athletes that chose to use performance-enhancing drugs, and that was the biggest answer I got from them of why they went down that path, that they didn't trust the system. So that was because, often their leagues were policing themselves. It was the proverbial fox guarding the hen house, and we don't have that in our program. So all of those considerations are taken into account by USADA.
And are you able to clarify as well what the maximum penalty would be? Is this considered a second strike, so to speak, when the way things went down the first time?
Yeah, well, Jon definitely has one penalty under the system. So the second penalty, if it were to come to that, basically doubles the amount of the first. So for a specified substance, which are your non-steroid substances, those will usually be a year the first time, and so there'd be 2 years for a second offense. The non-specified, which would include your harder substances, steroids, growth hormones, blood doping products, would be first time would be 2 years. The second time could be a potential of 4 years. Now, there's also stuff in the policy. There's mitigating circumstances which can be reduced from that if the athlete was, could show they weren't at fault and did their due diligence. There's also on the other side aggravating circumstances to show if the athlete took steps to try to hide their use or did more than one substance, they could go up even double. So all that stuff's built into the system, along with really, and it's important to note this, a lot of due process in the system. And that's why you see our statement relatively generic right now. Jon is afforded due process rights, and those will be carried out here, in the coming months.
And there are reports that it was a steroid. Are you able to confirm that?
I'm not going to comment on what the substance was.
Are all of his test results in?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that right now.
How long the process can take, though? Because it seems that it's different for each athlete or each case.
Yeah, it varies, and it's based on the unique circumstances in that case. I actually was just out at the WADA laboratory in Salt Lake City a couple weeks ago, and they were walking us through the process of how a sample comes in, and it's not like you see a police officer out in the field drop something into a kit and it gives an automatic result. There's a process that goes through it. These laboratories have to do confirmation testing on it, so it's a long, drawn-out process with many factors involved.
Have you heard from Jon's team?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment specifically on who I've talked to, although generally my job with the UFC when these things happen is to reach out to the athlete, to their camp. Because I'm not USADA and that we're not administering the program, I have to believe all of our athletes until they give me reason not to. And as we've seen in several instances leading up to this, my job is if the athlete needs help, I'll step in there and help them out and try to use some of my resources to do that.
Is there a time frame, though, that you expect this to be solved? Or
I can't say. It's too early in the process here, and things are still being figured out in which direction this is going. Too early to say that.
Is the in-competition window, to what extent could that be relevant for a potential penalty?
Yeah, I mean the in-competition window, so there are certain substances that are prohibited only in competition. So that's when it would be relevant. I can't comment on what this substance was, but if it were one of those, then the in competition would come into play. There are others that are prohibited in and out of competition where in competition would have no relevance.
Has a B sample already been tested? I mean, this is quite a lengthy
Yeah, this
time.
early in the process, I can tell you just generally the day that USADA makes announcement to us and notifies the athlete, the B sample wouldn't have been tested already. But I can tell you this, after touring the laboratory, when a WADA accredited laboratory makes an announcement of a positive test of a substance in that athlete's body, the substance 99.999% of the time is in that athlete's body. They do some confirmatory testing on even the A sample. So that's why we make the decision when we're notified to put out a statement, because we have confidence in these WADA laboratories that they're able to identify that.
Well, Jeff,
that
I guess
substance.
the reason I ask is, are you comfortable with the amount of time it took to get this report? I mean, I know it takes time. Like you said, it can't get done in the field, but it seems a little lengthy.
Yeah, again, what's relevant here is that the day this was collected was the day before the fight. So, the big question is, hey, could this sample result have come back before a fight? And I could tell you, no way. There's no way that a sample can be turned around. Even if that sample was being paid strictly attention only to that sample, that would be difficult. The reality is these WADA laboratories have hundreds of NFL samples, hundreds of Major League Baseball samples, and when you do have a potential positive here, there's a confirmatory testing thing that goes into play. So that's lengthy, multiple days. So no, what are we talking? How long are we talking out now from 214?
Almost a month.
3 or 4 weeks.
A month, yeah. I think that's more on the lengthy side, but hey, if there was a fight within 2 weeks of that collection, I think you probably would have seen some expedited nature to that. But because the fight had already taken place, I think they probably wanted to be sure that these results, because there was so much riding on them, were good.
Have you heard from California? Are they going to officially call it a no contest?
I've been in touch with Andy Foster, and I don't think that he's made that decision yet. Basically, I told him that, look, USADA is going to give you everything you need. If you don't, let me know, and we'll let the two of them, because there is dual jurisdiction here. USADA under the UFC program, and Andy Foster in California, the commission, also has jurisdiction over these
This
results.
is obviously speculative, but Jon won via vicious KO. Obviously this could go 1,000 different directions, but could they take the nature of his victory into account on a punitive basis, depending on what they find?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. That'd be a question probably to ask Andy Foster.
Any other questions?
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Dana, you ready?
Well, I guess first, can we get your reaction when you got this news?
Obviously, it's brutal. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm sure I feel the same way every one of you felt when you heard. It's unbelievable.
There's still an administration process, but if this is proven to be true, what will be the process with the title and the belt and that sort of thing?
I'm not going to say anything until this whole thing plays out and see how this thing, where we end up. But yeah, it's unbelievable.
Until the process is done, Dana, could this have come at a worse time? You sort of the eyes of the whole world on the sport.
Yeah, these never come at a good time. They're always bad, especially with somebody like Jon Jones, who, wherever you sit in MMA, in my opinion, he's the best to ever do it. He's the best ever, and that makes it even more unfortunate.
Have you talked to Cormier?
I did.
What did he say?
Holy shit, this is crazy. And he's in Hawaii right now with his family on vacation, and he couldn't believe it either. He felt the same way that I did.
You spoken to John?
Huh?
You spoken to John?
I have not spoken to him. No.
Dana, how much do you think this taints his legacy?
How much what?
How much do you think this taints his legacy?
I mean, if this ends up and he gets, and it ends up, getting 2 or 3, that might be the end of his career. So to talk about his legacy, I mean, that's probably the end of his career.
You don't see him coming back?
He might. Well, let me tell you what, it's tough. I mean, how old is Jon now? 30?
30.
Yeah, 33, 34, trying to make a comeback again. And you look at what could have been and what he could have done, and it's sad.
You've been very patient with him. Is there other chances? Is it personally sort of painful for you, this one?
What's the question?
The fact that you've had to be patient for Jon to come back before that this has happened?
Yeah, it's just I mean, I don't even know what to say. I always know what to say. I don't know what to say about this one.
The process can take a little bit of time, as Jeff was saying. Do you know exactly what you guys can do, or just gonna wait until?
Yeah, I mean, you have to wait until the whole thing plays out with the commission and USADA.
You have not stripped the belt and given up the DC?
No, he has to go through the process. He has to, go through the process with USADA and the California State Athletic Commission, and we'll go from there.
You were alluding to it, but obviously the talent that you've seen from Jon Jones is a physical specimen throughout the years. It's like, why, if anyone is not going to take performance-enhancing drugs, right?
Listen, he's the best ever, in my opinion. He had the potential to move to heavyweight and fight heavyweights. If you look at Cormier's never been beat at heavyweight. Jon beat him twice. I'm not saying that means Jon could have reigned in the heavyweight division, but he has the size, the power, everything. He has everything to be a heavyweight champion. So who knows what could have been. Just one of those sad stories,
Did you ever talk to Jon after 214?
No. Jon and I still haven't talked since 200. Hi, and a couple of words here and there, but we haven't talked.
Depending on what happens with the process and the test procedures and all what needs to happen, due process, would you consider doing an interim or something of that nature until it's decided?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Cormier would be the champion. I mean, the only guy he's ever lost to in his whole career is Jon Jones. So he was the champ. He's the champion if Jones isn't.
How long would you wait for results before you make a decision?
I don't know. I mean, how long do you think this thing takes to play out?
Again, it varies. I've seen them play out as little as under a month. I've seen them take 6 months up to a year. It just depends on the circumstances. Way too early in the game right now. I mean, we're a couple hours into getting notified to know really what all the circumstances are here. So way too early to predict that.
How close were you guys to booking Jones Gustafson for Detroit?
We were talking about Jones fighting at heavyweight.
Against Stipe?
Probably.
In Detroit?
Probably.
Dana, have you talked to Malky now?
No, I haven't talked to anybody. I talked to Cormier. He told me when we were at the office, this thing's going to go down, and I'll we have to notify Cormier, so I'll tell you when. And he told me, said go ahead and call him. So I called him while we were here. I called him from here.
Oh,
yeah.
So were you here when you got the news?
No, I knew this afternoon, but we were waiting to contact those guys. I guess they were trying to get a hold of Jon Jones. So
yeah, there's a process involved that USADA has multiple parties that they need to contact first, and then the formal notice and statement goes out. But it's relatively quick. It's within really probably an hour.
Dana, you say your speech is unlike usual. Is this like kind of hurt personally, the fact that you kind of seen like the beginning and all the way up and the ups and downs, and we're here?
Yeah, it's just Jon and I have been mad at each other since UFC 200, but the reality is we've been there for this kid every step of the way. How many times did I fly to Albuquerque every time he got in trouble, and the list goes on and on of what we've done for this guy, and it's sad. I like his family. Dad's a nice guy. His mom, sweetheart. His brothers are good guys, and just you look at the potential that this kid had and what he could have been, and you know what I mean. Look at Conor right now. Look at Conor McGregor. Imagine what Jon Jones could be right now. How big he could be. How many sponsors would he have? Who would he be signed with that, have never signed a mixed martial artist before? And the list goes on and on of what could have been with Jon Jones. It'll be a great 30 for 30 someday.
What is it overall, Dana? You guys have instituted a lot of things, bringing in Jeff, being what you saw. You've done basically everything you can do to try to stop this behavior from occurring. The fact that it still occurs, what does it tell you about the mindset of the way fighters can get and competitors can get?
Well, there's never a way to completely stop something. If people are always going to try to look for an advantage, but He was just telling me the other day. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you have to take a look at the numbers and see that, these numbers-wise, we are seeing a difference. The first 18 months of the program, I think we had 36 or 37 adverse events, and here we are in 2017, 8.5 months in, and we've seen a rash in the last couple of weeks. We're still in single digits. We have 540 plus fighters on our roster, and yeah, this is a fortunate one and high profile, but you have to look at those numbers. I mean, 9 adverse events with 540. That's 531 athletes that are complying with the system. Those are good numbers.
Amazing numbers. And how many times have Floyd and Conor been tested since?
So I was telling Dana this week that since July 1st, both Floyd and Conor have been tested. They've had 13 samples collected, and without a doubt, the 2 most tested athletes on the planet Earth in the last month and a half. And I think that makes that fight even more special coming up.
That's one of the things I respect about Floyd too, is that Conor was already in this program, with the UFC. Floyd didn't even flinch when I said we wanted to get USADA tested. Jumped right into the program and been tested 13 times, and they're both clean.
So all the
Strong.
results are back from Florida. All the results of Conor and Floyd are back.
They're likely being tested even this week as we speak. So I don't think that all of the results are back, but I'm sure with the high-profile nature of that fight that every test is being expedited to the extent that USADA and these laboratories can.
Jeff, would that be the norm? I know Mayweather's known for having blood and urine tested from him as opponents. Would that be the norm for UFC, or is that just a cost thing? Because I'm pretty sure it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, the UFC is now, our program's been up and running for 2.5 years. We entered into a 4-year contract with USADA, so yeah, everything that I've heard going forward that we're not stopping with that. And I talked to a lot of our fighters, and they make no doubt about it. This program is a burden. It's a burden to be woken up at 5:30 in the morning. It's a burden to be woken up at midnight, to have to let USADA know where you are 365 days a year. But I think it's something that makes some of the most special athletes on the planet even more special, that they realize this is a worthwhile burden. Because I don't think there's any sport that's more important, anti-doping is more important than MMA.
And everybody's willing to be clean as long as they know that everybody's clean.
So, obviously this is super fresh, but what goes on the Detroit card now?
I have no idea. I got to get through this weekend. I haven't been this nervous for a fight probably ever.
Why?
Because I want Conor to knock him out. Normally when we go into these fights, everybody's in the UFC. It's our guy versus our guy. I'm not going to say there haven't been special situations where I've, pulled against a Tito or something like that, but it's usually our guy versus our guy, and whoever wins wins. This is obviously a huge, a lot at stake here on both sides. So yeah, I've been pretty nervous. When the Patriots won the Super Bowl last year, I wore a Patriots shirt every day for a week, so I'm wearing a Conor McGregor shirt every day this week. I'm not superstitious or anything, but fuck it, I'll give it a shot.
Is that nervousness intensified since you got the news today?
Is what?
Is that intensified since you got the news today? Have you felt worse?
Do I feel worse with this fight than any other fight? Is that what you mean?
No, with the news that you got earlier, with this news coming out, is it
the
way you're feeling? Is that a bit of
No. There's bad news every day here. It happens in this sport. So, no, I feel exactly the same as I did this morning.
What about it sort of as a distraction?
Is it a distraction?
Yeah.
For last couple hours it has been, but this stuff happens every day. There's always something you get. Like you said, there's 530 something, 540 athletes under contract. This shit goes on every day behind the scenes. Not as big and obviously not as bad as this, but every day there's something. So I'm numb to it now after 16 years.
We're gonna see what happens this afternoon in front of the arena. Do you see the size of the fight as you seen before, as you imagined that before? There are other thing happens here in the city.
How big this thing is?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's it's fun to be a part of something this big and this special. This thing will break every record that's ever been as far as combat sports go. There's already a ton that it has. This is the most distributed fight in history of fighting. Over 200 countries will have this fight. Over 1 billion homes can get it, on some form of television. If you have Wi-Fi, I don't care where you are. If you're on the moon, you can get this fight. It's big.
And you brought the whole world.
Yeah.
You brought the whole world here in Vegas. The whole world are looking here.
Yeah.
Special for you.
Yeah, it's funny because when I think back to when Lorenzo and I got into this, right? This is the type of fight we used to dream about. You would never think that it would be a boxing versus MMA fight, but fights that don't make sense always pop up, and ones you don't expect, the ones you don't see coming, it always happens in this sport.
There's still critics that say that Conor has absolutely no chance in this fight. I know you said you stopped doubting him, but is there something tangible that, and you've seen him, you've seen the training, you've seen the sparring, is there something tangible
you guys
you would
saw
say,
some of the sparring.
here's how he's going to win?
When I really saw him sparring and I saw, how well he was doing, and guys, and he hit so hard, and he's so confident in himself, You sit in a room with Conor for 2 minutes and he'll make you believe too. I read so much. Where is Adam Hill? I know you don't put the two things. I know none of you guys write the headlines, and you're going to interview Bob Arum on Sunday, that senile fuck, and put his shit in the paper. I'm like, man, this is crazy. This is our hometown paper, and the top spells spectacle. And then all the interviews are with Bob Arum. Like, we're going to get a good... And Bob Arum's quote, this senile fuck's quote is, LeBron James is the greatest athlete on earth. Now, if he fought Anthony Joshua, he's comparing that fight to Conor. If LeBron James fought, Conor McGregor is a fighter. He can fight. That's the guy's quote. I mean, stuff like that bums me out. When I was reading that on Sunday on the front paper of the front of the RJ the other day.
Thanks for reading.
Huh? But yeah, and Mark Taffet from HBO gave somebody a quote. I don't remember who had it. This is like watching Evel Knievel jump the Grand Canyon. Fucking crazy, man. At the end of the day, the people who don't believe it don't know anything about fighting. You know nothing about fighting. This isn't going to be a boxing match. This is going to be a fight. Conor McGregor has knockout power on both hands. There's going to be 8-ounce gloves, and he's going to go in there to knock out Floyd Mayweather. It depends on, is Floyd really going to do what Floyd says he's going to do? Is Floyd going to come forward? He might, because he might believe that, he can hit Conor at will, and he's too fast, and he's a boxer, so maybe he thinks he can. But I'll tell you what, if he gets clipped one time, he won't keep coming forward. He will back up. And if he decides to run and do what he does when he fights, then it'll be a different kind of fight, But make no mistake, this will be a fight. Anybody here tell me the last time you saw a boring Conor McGregor fight? They don't exist. He is going to go in and go after Floyd.
Dana, where y'all get the 4.9 million buys at? Or at least Leonard's throwing that out there, because that's a crazy number.
Well, what happens is when there's a system to this. When you start to get in the reports on pre-buys, these guys have never done digital before. Boxing's never done digital. Our digital buys are off the charts. And what that means is you can go on to UFC.tv and you can buy the fight. The pre-buys are the biggest we've ever had by far. What does that mean? I don't know. We've never done it. They do pretty damn well for the UFC, so you got to imagine for this fight it's going to be off the charts. You look at DirecTV, all the different cable systems, and all that stuff. The betting. So the biggest sporting event ever bet was Mayweather versus Pacquiao. That was $70 million, bigger than the Super Bowl, bigger than anything. They're saying that they're expecting this one to be $140 million. So when you look at all the numbers that start to come in, you can start putting that stuff together on. We're tracking ahead of Mayweather-Pacquiao.
So that's a legit number.
Pay-per-view buys, yeah.
Dana, you're cheering for your guy, obviously, right? But I mean, if Conor wins here, it seems like there'll be more boxing opportunities for him than there may be UFC opportunities. So, I mean, is there any fear in a little bit that we may be losing our guy?
Well, the question is, if there's other boxing opportunities, who does he box?
Canelo.
Canelo.
Triple G.
I saw that fight. It doesn't end well. I saw that fight already. And
did you see their scuffle today?
Yeah, the guy is a commentator for Showtime, and he's going down and picking fights with Conor down at it's just crazy, madness. But yeah, no, I'd like to see him come back and defend his title in the UFC instead of any boxing opportunities after this. But yeah, I mean, the kid is special, and obviously, if he knocks out Floyd Mayweather, holy shit, you know, it's just, who the fuck knows what he'll do next? Anything is possible. The sky is the limit. Literally, the sky is the limit.
I'm sure he comes back to you and says, "I'd like a little more money next time I'm in the cage."
Yeah, I got a feeling we're gonna have that conversation, and I don't mind it. I welcome that conversation. He deserves it.
What about the ownership stake that he talked about after 205?
What's that?
What about getting his ownership stake like he was talking about after 205?
It's never been done, but anything is possible. Listen, if there's a lot of people who feel like they're worth this and they're worth that, we know what this kid's worth. You know what I mean?
In your eyes, Dana, is there a way to a moral victory for Conor in this fight?
A moral victory?
Yeah, I mean, even lasting 12 rounds against the great Floyd Mayweather, can't he call that a victory and say, "Look, I did my best"?
It depends on how the 12 rounds go. You know, you can go, anybody can go in and get the shit beat out of them for 12 rounds. You know, I don't know if that's a moral victory. I think that if the fight is an exciting fight, and you know, I'm hoping. Obviously, I'm hoping this weekend for a knockout. You know, if a knockout doesn't happen, I'm hoping for an entertaining fight. You know, that people. What I don't want is I don't want a Pacquiao Mayweather outcome on this one. I think that, you know, all the crybabies are out in fucking droves. Oscar De La Arum and fucking Bob Arum himself, and all these guys are all talking shit and stuff. What these dummies don't realize is it's good for everybody if this thing's a good fight. It's good. You know, when I say this all the time, when Mayweather Pacquiao happened, first of all, I said good for them, and second of all, it shows you what, if you have two guys in the right place at the right time, how high the bar can be set for combat sports. You know, it's good for everybody if this is a good fight.
Is that the way you want it viewed? It's basically like a brotherhood of combat sports. We're getting together and seeing.
That'll never happen.
I know, because
everybody hates
you're
everybody.
So frustrated at the comments from Arum and De La Hoya, but you know that's out there in the public as well. And if Conor is trounced, what they're going to say about the UFC and the.
Yeah, they've been saying it since day one. Not De La Hoya, but Arum has. You know, so I don't know why anybody would interview Arum about this fight, but whatever. That's beside the point.
Back to John for just a second. I mean, obviously, no one really knows exactly what's going to be next. But aside from stripping him or not stripping him, would the UFC consider exacting its own kind of punishment on him beyond what USADA might do?
It's possible.
Financial penalty.
It's possible. It's possible.
You feel let down by John after the way you talked about him after 2014?
Listen, at this point, who gives a shit what I think, man? He's done enough damage to himself. It's just his, you know, his dad said it in that thing that we built. John's his own worst enemy, and boy, is that true. You know, it's true. But again, sitting here today, like he said, it's not over yet. He's got to go through the process, and you know, maybe there was something crazy that happened for this stuff to get into his system. So I don't know. We'll see.
Dana, switching gears back to Conor, has he moved up to the level where kind of like Floyd is, when basically when people fight Floyd, he changes their life financially? Is Conor going to be on that level when whoever fights him in the octagon,
hey, listen,
can he change their life?
Conor?
Yeah,
Conor already has.
Not like his life, talking about whoever fights him just by being in the octagon with them, will their life change financially?
Conor?
No, not Conor. Like he comes back, who fights?
Oh, yeah. He already has before this fight. Conor's changed a lot of people's lives financially. Big time. Not even people he fought, people who were on the card with him. Never mind the people he fought. Just being on the card with Conor McGregor changed people's lives. Yeah, that's a fact. And just for the record, when we got this thing and put this thing together, Floyd kept saying they were the A-side, they were the A-side. I think when we went out on the road, we found out who the A-side was and who wasn't. And it's the same way. It takes two people to make a big fight. Floyd ain't making this much money not fighting Conor McGregor.
Would you say the floor on this one is above $3 million pay-per-view buys?
Yeah.
That's the floor.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, this thing's tracking.
So you're guaranteeing $3 million or more.
They're feeling like with the pre-buys right now, we're going to break the record in England, in the UK, with pay-per-view buys.
Do you know what that is? What the record
Just on
is?
the pre-buys, yeah, it was 1.1 million.
Today the officials told me that it's past the $72 million record for the live gate. Did you get that news as well?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't want to comment on it. I'm trying not to get in a fight with all my partners before we make it to Saturday. But yeah, whatever.
Dana, I know it's fresh, but obviously Dos Santos is out of the Francis Ngannou fight. You know, he's just finished a full training camp, and if you were going to target Stipe for Detroit, could you perhaps do Stipe versus Francis?
Yeah, no, we have other plans for him right now. He's devastated, this guy, that fight fell through. So we're trying to put something else together. When we get it done, I'll talk. I don't like talking about stuff till it's done. But yeah, we're working on something big for him.
Is your thinking that Conor will fight the Ferguson whenever that's ready?
I don't know. What I have to do is, with this thing going on, is just keep rolling. Keep all these guys active, keep moving, and however this turns out after the Mayweather fight and what Conor decides next, we'll go from there.
What is next for Nurmagomedov?
I tried to get him to fight in New York against Tony. He said he couldn't do it, he was hurt. So we switched it and we did the fight with Kevin, and then they came back and said, oh, we're not hurt and we want the fight. We had already moved on, you know. So I don't know. We'll see.
Any other questions?
Does booking that fight in October say that if Conor does come back in December, it's not going to be for the lightweight title?
I don't know. I just got to keep moving. I can't sit here and say I think Conor's going to come right back and fight. He said he's going to, but I don't know. I got to keep these guys active and keep moving and putting on fights, you know. So we'll see. We'll see what we do.
Thanks, Dana.
Good? Thanks for, what'd you guys think of the fights? Contender Series.
It's
Fun live, right?
It's probably the best one so far. And all this shit
It's
was
fun
going.
live. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for coming, you guys. We appreciate it.
Nice one.
Thanks, Dana.